You are listening to Offensive Lines with Marlon and Boyd. Small stakes NFL gambling for the average fan.
Happy New Year.
Happy
I'm Marlon.
New Year, I'm Boyd.
And this is Offensive Lines, our first podcast of 2013.
Wow. And to recap 2001-2, we had 1 out of 3 bets last week. We had Minnesota to win outright, paid $26, so we were only down $4 for the week. And we hit 2 out of 3 in our 3-team parlay.
And I take the hit for that, man. I should always listen to you on Indy. You know that team way better than I do. I was the guy who was more comfortable with Houston. I thought it mattered to them, and it didn't matter to Indy. But you were right. Mea culpa.
Well, no problem there. I went along with it after the tease. It was fine. I was hoping I'd been right on Houston a lot this year. I'd advocated them almost every week to be included in our bets, but it was just the Pagano thing. His first game back, and it did mean nothing to Indy. They won, and they're still playing. Who were they playing? Baltimore.
Yeah.
So they didn't improve any.
Oh, no, and they couldn't improve any. Their seed was fixed, and Houston went from 1 to 3 with no bye. And that was the effort they gave us. Wow. But continue on your recap. I had to accept the blame for that. I felt terrible about that.
No, not at all. Wins a team, loses a team. What was our 2-team tease? Oh, we had we had New Orleans.
And Dallas.
Yeah. And we needed Dallas to win just for our NFC East bet. And, of course, Tony Romo had 3 picks. Winnable game for the Cowboys.
Very winnable.
I couldn't believe it. I was
a little surprised by New Orleans' performance, though.
Well, we know their defense is bad. It was Tennessee Titans bad. They finished 31st against the pass, worst against the run, and 29th in points or some combination of that this year. But I didn't think Carolina had put up 44.
We've seen New Orleans look bad. We've seen them look good. But that was probably the first game I've seen them look utterly listless.
Well, I thought they'd have the pride to finish 8-8.
That's what I thought too. And yeah, that was probably, in my opinion, probably the worst Saints performance of the year. Well, all things considered.
There's rumblings in New Orleans that they don't like Spagnuolo, the D coordinator, that he was just awful. No input from the players, his way or the highway. They didn't like his scheme because it was too complicated. But he'll probably get canned. Did Peyton hire him, or was he brought in after?
No, he would have been hired by Peyton because Williams was going to the Rams,
right?
Fisher, so that would have been a pre-suspension hiring, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember, but you're probably right. But it's just, I don't know. He was unsuccessful as a head coach. What did he come from the Giants after their first Super Bowl under Coughlin? He got the head coaching job in St. Louis.
Yeah.
They're awful. And you look what Fisher did. What were they, 7-8-1 this year?
Yeah.
Basically the same team.
Yeah.
So it shows you what coaching can do. And then a couple other bets we have to touch on from our preseason. Our over-under bets. We missed the Cowboys on the AFC East. NFC East, sorry. We missed Seattle.
They didn't win the AFC East either.
No, but we missed Seattle. We had them under 6, I believe. We had our Minnesota under 5.5. Oh, Seattle was under 7. It's a good thing I printed them out.
Yeah.
We had Tampa Bay under 4. We had Minnesota.
Well, and the way they've played half this year, I don't know how wrong we were on that one.
Well, we had Minnesota under 6.
Adrian Peterson.
Well, that's
not a human being.
Well, that's what we betted on. Then we had Dallas to win the NFC East, missed on that. We had Indy under 6.5, missed on that.
Damn cancer.
Then we had Cleveland under 6.5. We won on that. That paid a whopping $8.60 on a $5 bet. And then we had Miami under 7.5, and we hit that, and that paid $9.
And that looked like we were going to lose that for a while too, but they really, after Tennessee destroyed them, that Miami team, who'd been playing hard for most of the season, but they gave nothing, and thank you. Tannehill.
They had New England twice. I think they had to go to Houston after that. So their schedule got significantly tougher in the back half, if I recall correctly, so that worked in our favor too. But I think next year we'll have to go on those, maybe pick 3 or 4 teams and maybe bet a little more so there's some payout.
Yeah, I think so. We were experimenting with the over-unders this year. And, we lost a bit of money, but that's what gambling is.
And on the over-unders, we didn't lose a ton because some of our losses from the preseason were based on our $5.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the preseason, which we've been doing this for 2 years now. We haven't hit a bet in the preseason. So we're still going to keep doing it.
You're certain of that? We haven't talked about that yet,
no,
but
have to.
I agree.
We're a gambling podcast, and we're not going to break down the Bills switching to a 3-4 defense over the off season or whatever happens. I'm just using that as an example. We're not going to break down position battles in camp. So I think that's our only option.
Well, in one way, it's been, 2 ways. It's been a great new year for me already. Norv and AJ are gone. I thought this would happen last year. And that was the only reason I could deal with the Chargers' collapse last year. And when Black Monday came and the coach firing started, I wasn't hearing it. I said to a guy I work with, I'm going, why haven't they fired Norv and AJ? Because I just had this deja vu nightmare that somehow they would hang around. So, goodbye, good luck. Fuck off.
Norv is going, the rumor has it Norv's going to the Jets as an offensive coordinator, which he is a great coordinator.
I've never denied that.
And that's the position he should have stayed at. But I get it. You always want to strive.
He got promoted one more level, but you'd think his first couple of times would have shown him that he wasn't ready to be a head coach.
Well, and Wade Phillips had the same problem.
Or not even ready. He's not qualified to be a head coach.
No, the offensive guys love him. Every quarterback that he's ever coached loves him. Well, of course they do. He's a great offensive mind. There's no denying that. But he just can't run a football team. It takes a certain type of personality. So I wish him luck in New York.
I genuinely do, too. I mean, I've
he's
never
not
disliked
a bad guy.
Norv personally. Well, not that I've met him, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not a hatred for who he is as an individual, but I just wish he wasn't the head coach of my football team.
Yeah.
And he no longer is. Now, on the A.J. Smith, he was Butler's assistant, who was a really good GM, and like Roger Goodell, sometimes the assistant should not be promoted once the boss either dies or retires.
Well, now, but here's one thing I was thinking about. Was AJ a hard ass on the negotiations with players, on contract negotiations, because of what the owner wanted? Or because that's what he thought was right? He was trying to do it the Patriot way.
From my understanding that was him. Dean Spanos Jr., the owner of the team, when he took over from his dementia-addled father, actually seemed to understand and let these people do their jobs. I don't think there was a huge amount of owner interference in A.J. Smith's job.
Okay, well then he deserves to get fired.
Yeah, that's very much my impression. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the offices, but from watching a team for 25 years, that was my perception.
Well, and who did they have as a big free agent that ever wanted to sign in San Diego? I can't remember any. They just lost big-time free agents. They never signed any.
I watch NFL on Sundays, and every team I'm going, oh, he used to be a Charger. He's starting for this team. He used to be a Charger. He used to be a Charger. You know, it goes from Kasim Osgood, a tremendous special teams player who was booted to Jacksonville. Well, admittedly, he had some gunfire problems there, but... you know, to Sproles, who, you know, this is one rip on Norv. Why wasn't Sproles used the way New Orleans used him instantly?
It doesn't make any sense, does it?
No. You know, when he was the only healthy back in camp, they would call bad middle draws on the goal line that would work once out of 10 times, and the occasional swing pass to the outside, but they never utilized him properly. So that's probably my only real riff on Norv. But I don't want to dwell on this. I don't know what the future brings, but change was sorely needed.
Well, Lovie Smith interviewed, or is rumored to be interviewing with the Chargers as of today. So, I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm not a big Lovie Smith fan.
Well, the players loved him too, on the defensive side. But
weirdly enough, I'd probably prefer Andy Reid if we could entice him there. He said he wanted to coach in San Diego.
See, the problem with Lovie Smith is the problem that a lot of coaches face. He had talent on one side of the ball and not enough on the other.
And his focus and the draft always reflected that they kept on bringing in good defensive players. And both of those teams, Chicago and San Diego, there isn't one person on the O-line of either team that I think should be starting in the NFL.
Well, and their best draft pick on the offensive side of the ball was Forte.
Yeah.
When you have no O-line to block for him, what's the point of having a top 5 running back?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And you know my draft strategy. If I were a GM, I would draft. I'll start with the O-line. Then we'll get a little O-line. Then we'll get some depth on the O-line. And then a running back.
Well, I would go both the O-line or D-line. Depending on where the draft is, like what's stronger.
I know it's players, and I'm obviously overstating my case there, but...
Yeah, but you got to build out from the inside out. So in the trenches, and then work your way out. But there's a lot of teams, like New England's offensive line isn't that great. Name one that is great. In the playoffs, Green Bay's isn't very good. Seattle's is okay.
But New England has drafted a bit on the O-line, and it just hasn't panned out. And that's the nature of the game, too. Sometimes it's going to fail.
Right. But it's just there's not a lot of teams with great O-lines anymore. Even Minnesota, Adrian Peterson finished 9 yards shy of breaking Eric Dickerson's record, and he gained over half of those yards after contact. So, how big of holes are they opening? Like, who would you?
Well, and the last few games where I've watched Adrian too, he looked like Chris Johnson picking his way along, looking for the hole, but then he hit it. Like,
yeah, but he didn't stop.
It wasn't like an Emmitt Smith run back in the days, where he got the handoff and he just took off like a bug rabbit and just went through the hole that the line had made. He was picky. He's good enough he can do it. Most of these backs just can't do that, including Chris Johnson, you know?
The problem in Tennessee, well, it was Chris Johnson a lot of the time, but Adrian Peterson he didn't jump stop to get to the hole.
That's true.
If you're picking your way along it and moving your feet, that's fine. Chris Johnson would run up to the line, stop, jump sideways, and then try and re-accelerate if there was a little sliver, and then just close the door.
That's a really good point. That's a huge difference there. But I was trying to compliment Adrian on his patience there.
Yes. Oh, no, I get it. I was just explaining the other side from watching the Titans for the last 2 years. Because you saw with Chris Johnson when he hit the hole running downhill when he ran for 94 yards against the Jets.
Yeah.
He hit the holes like that all the time. He'd average 6-7 yards a carry.
Though a lot of the time in Johnson's defense, and by the way, he ended up with 1250, which is a pretty credible season for most guys. And a lot of the times he would get the ball, and there would be 4 jerseys swarming him 4 yards in the backfield.
Oh, yeah, no, the O-line in Tennessee's brutal, too. And I just want to touch on, I thought Munchak would get fired in Tennessee, was kind of hoping. But all they did was fire the COO, who used to be the GM, who drafted most of the decent players they have. Because he just moved up to the COO position, and that was Mike Reinfeldt 2 years ago. And then they just can him. We don't need a COO. Okay, why'd you need him before? I'm assuming he was still helping with player decisions and drafting. If he was the old GM, you wouldn't just totally remove yourself from that.
Well, what I've heard is that the fact that he failed to bring Peyton Manning to Tennessee.
Well, you weren't bringing him to Tennessee anyway. They offered him more money and ownership, and he still didn't take it. So,
yeah, but Bud Adams is crazy and vindictive.
Yeah, and he just turned 90, so him and Ralph Wilson should just build a retirement home together.
I actually think Ralph Wilson is at least benign compared to Bud Adams. He's a benign tumor.
Yeah, he doesn't give the...
Bud Adams may be a cancerous tumor.
He's weird. I picked the great ones, don't I? I cheer for the Islanders. They got some weird computer billionaire who has no idea what he's doing. Bud Adams, I don't know what he's been doing recently. I don't know how these other teams can become good, like Atlanta and all these other teams in Tennessee just muddles along. We had a good stretch of a few years with Steve McNair and Eddie George and Derek Mason and our defensive line. But other than that, for the last 20 years, it's been pretty slim.
Yeah, I've accepted my Chargers will never win a Super Bowl, but...
I can't accept. Then I'd quit watching. I can't accept that. I have to keep thinking it's because you see every year, like Seattle just turned around in 1 year. Like how many teams missed there was another 3 teams swapped out this year in the playoffs. Washington, Seattle, and the Vikings. Like usually it's half the teams are different.
Yeah.
Right? So we got 3 in the NFC.
Hey, we could be Mitch and cheering for the Lions, so.
Got Indy.
So that's brighter lights than that.
Yeah. So, so Indy, Seattle, Minnesota, and Washington. So that's 4. Any other new teams? Houston was in last year. Baltimore, New England, Cincy.
Yeah, Cincy repeats in the playoffs. That's surprising.
Pittsburgh got rotated out. So we got 1 and 2. Oh, Denver was in last year too. So we only had 1 new team in the AFC and 3 in the NFC. Was it only 3 in the NFC? Yeah, Green Bay. Oh, why am I struggling with remembering who made the playoffs this year?
We'll find out real soon.
Green Bay, Seattle, and Washington's new. Who are the top seeds in the NFC? Green Bay and San Fran. So they're the same. And Seattle and Washington are new. Was there a fourth team? Who's the other team in the NFC?
That would be Seattle, Washington, many are new. Oh, yeah. Atlanta.
Green Bay, yeah. Well, Atlanta. So, yeah, we only had 3 different.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the usual cycle. But none of the other coaching firings really surprised me.
No, we had Shermer in Cleveland. GM.
Who is not a good coach, and that ownership situation, you knew that was going to happen in week 4.
Yes.
So that one's not a surprise. Arizona.
But all these coaches are getting interviewed. Wisenhunt interviewed in Buffalo. He just went 5-11, and you're getting interviewed? What did Andy Reid finish? 5-11? He's interviewed. Every team wants to interview him.
4-12, I think he went. But well, I'd take Andy Reid. By the way, he's a close to 600 winning coach in a tough situation. Honestly, it would not break my heart to see him go to San Diego.
Yeah, Andy Reid's the equivalent of Shanahan. When he has a respectable quarterback, he looks good.
But he's also developed over time respectable quarterbacks. I think the...
Who else did he develop besides Donovan McNabb?
Well, he had Vic working well until Vic.
1 year. He had him for about games. And that was just because Vic was in a contract year. He calmed himself down. I don't think it had anything to do with Andy Reid. Kevin Kolb, that was a beauty. He didn't develop anybody.
Yeah, but boy, for the organization, Kevin Kolb briefness worked for the organization.
Yeah, but so did the Matt Flynn thing could have worked for Green Bay too. For one game. That just shows you what a
knee-jerk reaction league this is.
Dude, of most of the quarterbacks. When a guy has one good game in a meaningless game at the end of the year, teams are falling all over themselves to get a hold of him.
And I'm going to bring up this conversation again a little later. How do you feel we do some gambling?
All right.
Well, there was one other thing we both found pretty amusing.
Bonnie Bernstein.
He's squared.
Fucking idiot. She posted this on her Facebook. Now, if this doesn't get you suspended working for ESPN, they should never suspend anybody again. She compared Ray Lewis's involvement in the murders in Atlanta and him throwing away his suit he was wearing that was covered in blood to her not smoking when she went out into the woods behind their house with her friends, and they smoked and she didn't, but she washed her clothes because she didn't want her parents to think she was smoking.
What I really like is she wouldn't even cop to smoking. I never did. Like, what?
You just stood there and watched it, but it didn't cave to peer pressure. Well, that sounds better than, yeah, I smoked. I'm a weakling.
But yes, I'm missing the point. I dragged you off there. Sorry, man.
It's just, how can you even make a statement? And this all came about because Ray Lewis is retiring at the end of the year. And,
allegedly.
And in the post on the website today, I asked the question, is the NFL close to having a test for HGH?
Nice coincidental timing.
But it kept with my theme of Ray Lewis allegedly using performance-enhancing drugs to play like a 25-year-old linebacker when he's almost 40. And nobody questions it. It's just Ray Lewis is great. And now you come to find out Ray Lewis is signing on with ESPN to work Monday Night Countdown. Epic failure there. He'll be Emmitt Smith. And they'll get rid of him after a year.
Or Jerome Bettis. Or...
Yeah, guys.
Or Hines Ward, watching him crash and burn as an analyst was hilarious this year. But
like, they test him before they put him on the air. Or they just, he's got a name. People watch because of his name, and then they don't know if he can talk on camera.
Well, what I'd really like to see, though, is Ray Lewis, and they go to his segment, and he just screams at the camera, like he does in all his pregame talks, just that, all right, let's go out there.
Well, it's just...
Because that's his personality, at least the persona. If he did that, and they just cut to him screaming at the camera, I would watch. That would be awesome.
Yeah, but he won't.
Oh, I know he won't. He'll put on a suit and...
Another talking head. And I give him credit for rebuilding his reputation after everything that happened.
Hey, and he went through the legal process. If he beat it, he beat it. But
who out there gets away with getting rid of the suit covered in blood and then not cooperating with the investigation in the beginning?
Well, and since he announced his alleged retirement, people are saying, oh, he agreed to testify against these people, but he wouldn't say anything, and that's why he got the obstruction of justice, if my memory serves, from books by Feinstein and several other books I've read about it. They were angry at him because he agreed to testify but would refuse to give actual information.
Yeah,
now, I could be wrong on that, but I read a lot of books about this, and it wasn't that, oh, suddenly he turned goody federal witness.
No, he saw everything that happened.
And refused to say.
And said nothing. And walked.
Under duress, and that's why he got the probation and the criminal charge. I mean, good lawyering.
There's something happened there that he knows he'll take to his grave. That just, it doesn't seem right. That he's being, this is never even brought up anymore.
No, but he went through the legal system, and,
you
know, at a certain point you have to say the legal system is the legal system. I mean,
OJ went through it, so did Kobe. They were never given this free pass that Lewis was. Lewis was forgotten a year. They won the Super Bowl that same year.
Well, when they won that year,
he was the MVP of the Super Bowl,
and he was doing, I'm going to Disneyland. And I said to a coworker at the time who didn't watch football, I said, wonder what the parents of those two murdered kids feel like right now. And he said, you just ruined everything for me. But I guess that's what I do.
Well, no, but it's... How many guys get a free pass on something like that in pro sports? Do you think Ray Lewis will get into the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But they'll keep out guys like in baseball like McGuire. They kept out Michael Irvin because of drugs. Never killed anybody. Never did anything. Didn't headbutt his wife. Didn't do anything like that. He was kept out for 2 or 3 years. Chris Carter's being kept out, I'm sure, because of drugs or something to do with it. There's something else there because he's got the numbers to be in. More than Art Monk, more than a lot of receivers that have been in front of him. So Ray Lewis will go in first ballot. And they'll talk about him like they do about Mike Singletary and Butkus and all these tough linebackers.
Well, and to tell you the truth, I think it should be that way for all of them. It's the Hall of Fame for football. It's not the Hall of Fame for human being.
No, I agree. But you can't have it both ways on guys you like because they give you access. And that's all it is. If you treat the media right, they give you a pass.
He was a hell of a player, though, too. I do believe he is absolutely, unquestionably a Hall of Fame linebacker.
Marlon, I have no problem with him getting into the Hall of Fame, but you can't keep some guys out based on certain reasons and let other guys in because
I know.
And that's the problem. So, but that's my little rant on Ray Lewis based on Bonnie Bernstein being an idiot.
And potentially insane.
And if you want...
How do you think that this... Honestly, when you write that piece, how do you think that's going to fly? I'm going to compare me not smoking with some bad kids and me washing my clothes to Ray Lewis's involvement in a murder trial and his destruction of the bloodstained suit. How do you think that's going to work?
I can't even.
You think you're so good at rhetoric and writing that somehow this will clear things up for people? Like, you have to be insane.
Well, and you mentioned it when we talked about this before the podcast, that she put in parentheses, I understand that smoking isn't comparable to murder, thank you.
Yeah.
Why are you making the comparison?
Yeah, you're making the comparison if you understand.
You were already, while you were writing it, you were seeing the criticism you were going to get, yet you continued to write it and post it on your Facebook page. Lack of judgment. Like, okay, if you're talking with friends or colleagues and you bring that point up, most of them are going to roll their eyes and groan and go, you're out of your mind. Yet she posted it to Facebook. And what is it, just to get publicity? Like,
I guess so. I didn't even know she was working in the industry anymore, so.
Terrible. Terrible.
Well, again, you notice it was Facebook, not.
No, ESPN would never print something like that, but they have rules.
Well, do we know that?
No, but generally they won't because they know it's controversial. They try and dissuade them from putting anything controversial on their Twitter or Facebook or anything.
Right, anything that's not controlled directly by their.
Well, but this is.
Anyway, yeah, it's one of the more insane and stupidest statements, and the website is going to link to that on Deadspin, which has a hilarious article, and props to Deadspin.
It'll be up. It'll be on the post tomorrow if you want to read the whole. They have a link to her Facebook post, and they've also shortened it down to the most pertinent parts that we've talked about. So take a look at that. Get our views up on our webpage, please. Thank you.
And now let's gamble.
All right.
The early Saturday game. Cincinnati goes to Houston. They're getting 4.5 points.
Now, listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, the Sharps in Vegas are all taking Cincinnati right now. Which, I don't know if that's based on just Houston's poor play in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
And
1-3.
But do we remember last year? Houston just destroyed them last year. Is Cincinnati that much better this year than they were last year?
They've got a good defensive line. I listened to Simmons, too. I mean, I like Cincinnati quite a bit here. But I don't know how much of that is just my bitter anger at what Houston showed me last week. Again, a game that mattered to them and mattered little to their opponent. They were god-awful.
I know. Schaub looked awful.
And this is the point I was going to bring up about backup quarterbacks who get the starting job. What has Schaub ever done to be rated as a good quarterback?
Nothing.
Absolutely fuck nothing. He
didn't even play in the playoffs last year.
Backup, wasn't he?
No, he was in Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta, right.
He's behind Vic.
Right.
He was the one that started the whole, this backup quarterback played one good game or two good games. We need him.
Yes, and I'm sorry for my lack of detail here. I'm still angry at fucking Houston and Schaub. He has never had a good game that mattered. And now that everyone's seems to have sort of found a counter to the zone run scheme, and that the back end just does not over-pursue because Arian Foster, Tate, whoever, really doesn't get through a lot of tackles. They're great at going through holes. And when they cut back against the grain, people are staying home and they are tackling them. Without that 225 yard per game rushing attack, Schaub is terrible. He looks like Joey Harrington from Detroit. Or, as I always refer to him, Joey Hetherington. But
Well, the thing that bothers me about taking Cincinnati in this game is how Houston's defense made Dalton look last year. That he was awful.
he
And
was
they were
a
in that.
rookie last year.
Yeah, but if he gets a pass rush in his face, and Houston still has a good pass rush.
They do. And
And can you name me a receiver outside of AJ Green in Cincy?
Gresham, the tight end.
Yeah. They got some 5'8" reject from the CFL. I know that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Though
I think I'm certainly going to take Cincy to cover.
Yes. But honestly, as upset goes this week, it's either them or Indy, I think. That would be the best shot as an upset. And I would lean more to Cincinnati, just like you said, Dalton was a rookie last year. Because we've only got 4 games to bet.
Yeah, this is true.
So we've got to...
the over-under is 43.5, and I'm leaning at the under. Because I think the defenses are the better squads on both of these teams.
Yes.
Like, I don't mind the under as a potential here.
Well, I would be more comfortable picking Cincinnati just on the money line. Even after all I've said. Because you have to look at...
The payout is good. A $10 bet would get us $27.50.
And you have to look at how Houston's played the last 4 weeks. Like that, you generally don't turn it on. Like, they're not this big, experienced playoff winning team. Like, Schaub didn't even win their game in the playoffs last year.
No, and I honestly think Houston was a better team without Schaub. I mean, he'll go in, he'll win games against garbage opposition, but I think they might have gotten deeper without him, running TJ Yates. I'm not saying Yates is better than Schaub. I'm not completely insane, but you know what I mean? I don't think Schaub adds anything to this team.
He hasn't the last 4 to 6 weeks. Like, those games against Denver are a long ways away. That they were beating teams on the road and good teams. And I thought the Green Bay game was an aberration when they got blown out at home, but that could be, they're just not that good. So I think we got to keep that one in the mix for like an upset bet or something like that.
Okay, and I'll also put in as a possibility the under.
I don't like betting over-unders.
Okay.
We haven't hit one, and we've tried.
We have hit. I have to go through the records, but we have hit over-unders.
Okay,
it's not a zero skunk, but I see your point.
So the last 4 games Houston's played, they lost New England 42-14. They beat Indy at home 29-17, lost to Minnesota at home 23-6, and lost to Indy 28-16. But before that, they'd won. Oh my God, they only had 1 loss.
Yeah, the Green Bay coming into town.
But like, I thought they'd turned the corner when they beat Chicago in the rain, 13-6, and like a tough defensive game, hard hitting. But then they played all those games, and you know what? Maybe all those games in the middle of the season, when they played like 3 games in 17 days and played played overtime back-to-back games in 4 days, had some effect. Because after that, they lost 3 out of 4 games.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. And I mean, Watt's incredible, and I still do like that defense overall.
Their pass defense is a little weak. Their corners are still weak.
Yeah, but when the rush gets through, and they still can do that, and Dalton doesn't have Luck's release.
Or scrambling ability.
No, yeah, no mobility at all. But I think it's going to come up in the mix, but I think you're right. It might just be a money line bet because I still don't mind that price.
No, it's a good price, and for upsets on the board, there's only, Washington's kind of an underdog. We can look at that too, but we'll get to that. So, pool-wise, I'm going in Houston to win, Cincinnati to cover.
Yeah, I'm splitting it too. And just a brief update in our pool, I want to congratulate Evil Marlon on his stirring come-from-behind victory.
That was incredible. 6 down going into the last weekend, and he wins. That's the great thing about having 2 picks.
Yeah.
Pool. Because straight up, you're not making up 6 picks in 1 week. And when we pick against the spread and straight up, it just opens everything up. Like even last year in our playoff one, when I won.
Yeah.
Honk, honk, honk. That's my own horn.
Yeah, with 4 minutes left in the game, Shelley could have taken you.
Yeah, I'd led the whole pool in the playoffs and picked the Giants both ways to win. If they didn't win, I was done. I wouldn't have got anything. So it was pretty.
Yeah, I think Ian was in the mix there too. But
yeah, everybody was.
I just wanted to shout out to Evil Marlon. Good work.
Yeah, he sucks. No. Says the guy who finished 9th, about 30 games back. Oh well, next year.
The late Saturday game. Minnesota is getting 7.5 going to Green Bay.
See, I think this one goes the same way as their game, 4 weeks ago in Green Bay. Minnesota kept it close, and Green Bay held on for the cover. I think they won by 9.
I honestly think Green Bay is gonna blow them out of the park this week.
Yeah, it won't be.
I think Minnesota is a spent team that was emotionally involved in that record. They're hurt. They've got Adrian Peterson on offense, a 1-in-10 ponder, perfect deep throw. They're playing outdoors. I honestly think Green Bay is going to pace them by 17-24.
Yeah, but is Jordy Nelson going to be healthy? Like, I think
I've heard everybody's healthy.
Okay. Then
that's what I've heard.
Then Green Bay should beat them.
I don't like that half point one bit.
Well, the problem I have is Green Bay's offensive line. If Minnesota can somehow create pressure on Rodgers, they're a totally different team.
But they didn't create a lot of pressure last week.
And they had the home crowd and the noise.
Yeah, the home crowd. They honestly, there were plays where they chased him. They got some sacks too, but they weren't the dangerous kind of sacks where he didn't see it coming, that, they were just overwhelming him. I honestly think Green Bay should be in the mix here.
Yes.
Lay in the points.
I think all 4 of them are going to be in the mix at some way, shape, or form.
True. I really like Green Bay in this game.
Yeah, me too. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, sorry, Craig. Who was also the victim of the Evil Marlon comeback.
Oh, I wouldn't have been able to watch football Sunday. When I saw the Tide and everything, it would have killed me. That's just me. And I'm not trying to rub it in by saying that, honestly. I'm not. I just would have been freaking out.
I think Minnesota is just spent. That was their Super Bowl last week. They made the playoffs, and an improbable playoff appearance it is, but it's Green Bay at home, and
yeah, I'm taking Green Bay.
It's not the same mystique that Green Bay used to have at home, but I think this is a different game. Plus, I always favor the loser of a back-to-back matchup to take the second game.
Well, and when you have Christian Ponder as your quarterback, it's just...
Yeah, Christian Ponder, Aaron Rodgers,
And you've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback against a guy who has trouble completing 50% of his passes.
Yeah,
So,
flashes of brilliance, but... All right. Moving on, we have Indy is getting 7 going to Baltimore.
and that's the early Sunday game.
Yeah, early Sunday. If there's a stay away on the board, it's this one.
Well, no, we got.
I hate fucking Indy.
Well, no, but we got to bet it.
Okay.
Well, it's in a tease or something.
No,
all
absolutely.
4 teams are going to be involved. So, I like Baltimore in this game. Indy hasn't been a very good road team. Baltimore's getting a little healthier. I think if we've learned anything from Baltimore, they don't use Ray Rice in the regular season properly, but he seems to be a huge factor in the playoffs. Like last year against New England, the year before that, New England, I don't know what changes for Harbaugh or whoever's calling the offense there, but they're a totally different team the way they call it in the playoffs. And Andrew Luck is turnover prone more so than Russell Wilson or RG3. And they just don't have the defense to do anything really to Baltimore, I don't think, to keep them in the game.
I agree. I'd probably prefer to tease this if we were going in just because I don't like... I mean, Indy, how can you not like them? But I don't think either of these teams is taking home the trophy, you know?
No. And there was a great stat put out by ESPN Stats Info that I got in a tweet retweeted by somebody that they had, I think it was John Buccigross, but anyway, they had 20 of the last 22 Super Bowl winners won at least 3 of their last 5 games. Baltimore and Houston did not do that.
That's actually really interesting because I heard an argument, momentum doesn't matter. Oh, that kind of throws a bit of that in the face, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I like that stat. I
have
not heard that.
So I wouldn't take Baltimore if you're picking a team to win the Super Bowl and betting on it right now. I wouldn't take Baltimore or Houston. Now watch, one of them will make the Super Bowl. But it's 90%. It was 91% it worked out to of the teams that won at least their last 5 games that made the Super Bowl. So I like Baltimore in this game. I'm not entirely comfortable laying 7 with them, so I like the tease.
Okay.
And I think pool-wise, I would go Baltimore.
I think I'd lean that way too, though I might split them.
Indy's defense is just, it's bad.
Okay, why don't I listen to myself occasionally and just say, why don't I listen to you on Indy?
What Indy?
You know this team a lot better than I do, and you pick them right better than I do. Yeah, so Baltimore.
Their defense is just not good enough right now. They have, and everybody just talks about Luck as a rookie. They're loaded with rookies and second-year guys playing. And their secondary is bad. Their DNs are old. It's not the same defense. I don't think they're going to be able to score. What are they going to have to score? 28 points? I just don't think you do it on the road with a rookie quarterback. At least not the way their team's constructed right now.
And weirdly enough, the Ray Lewis retirement, or alleged retirement, because I still think this is just his latest motivational tool.
Could be.
That will work very effectively to counter Chuck Strong. So yeah, Baltimore. Though
Okay.
I'd like to tease it if we're going to bet it.
Yes.
7 seems a little large to me.
Yeah.
And the final game, and the most entertaining, well, on paper, game of the week. Seattle is laying 3, the only road favorite in the playoffs.
Well,
Going to Washington.
if we're teasing Baltimore, I want to tease Washington to +9.
Really?
Yep.
Because I was leaning towards Seattle at +3.
No, I like Washington in this game. How many games have they won in a row? Get
7.
in the playoffs.
7.
Playing at home against a poor road team this year. Give up leads late on the road.
Though they've gotten better.
Yes, but who is the competition?
Chicago.
Well, yeah, non-playoff team. Lost. What'd they lose? Would they go
I just
3
like
and
Seattle's
5?
defensive line. They've got the speed to contain Griffin. The Cowboys
Yes, but
were in a prime position to beat Washington. If the quarterback doesn't fall apart, Dallas beats Washington in that game, and I don't see Russell Wilson falling apart. Over the last 6 games, Russell Wilson is like 10 TDs and 2 picks.
Yeah, but you have 2 rookie quarterbacks. One's playing on the road. Seattle's defense is good. Russell Wilson struggled against Arizona last week. They struggled to beat, or not Arizona, the Rams. They struggled to beat the Rams.
Which occasionally puts up tremendous defensive performances.
No, but...
And Washington's defense is playing well. All right, you know what? On this one, I like the tease, and I talked you into taking the Houston when we teased last week, so you know what? I'm going to bow to your better judgment.
Well, it's just
this week, you know?
When you have 2 rookie quarterbacks, I like the quarterback at home. Washington's defense, and so is Seattle's to a degree. Seattle doesn't run the same type of offense that Washington does, totally. They don't do a lot of option running, stick it in the gut, pull it out type shit like Washington does or San Francisco does with Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Washington has played against a mobile quarterback in practice all year.
It's an interesting point.
All year. So is Seattle, but it's a different... Wilson's more of a runner, but they use Lynch. They don't do that option, sprint him out. His running and scrambling is done when it's a pass play.
I worry about the speed on the ends by Seattle, and I like their cornerbacks. And Browner is back from his suspension.
I still like home team. With Seattle, as poor as they were on the road, I just don't know what's changed. Why they're a favorite on the road after they struggled on the road all year. And not against great teams. Lost to Arizona.
Yeah, and you can't even count that road win in Toronto as a road thing. That was a neutral field.
Lost at St. Louis, lost at San Francisco, lost at Detroit, lost at Miami. And then they beat Chicago in overtime. And they beat Buffalo on the road.
Buffalo was a neutral site.
Yeah, so they've won 1 game on the road out of the last 6 games.
And we get 9 points?
We get 9 points, and they've won 1 game on the road, and they're favorites.
You've made your argument, man. No?
So, awful road team, or very inconsistent road team. Like, yeah, granted, they lost to San Francisco by a touchdown, but losing to Arizona, St. Louis, Detroit, Miami on the road, this game's going to be close, and Seattle's buckled in close games on the road. So if
if they buckle, if we're getting 9 points,
I don't see them,
even if they win it. Yeah, do you see them winning it by one of those beatdown scores they threw on Zona or something? No.
And you were talking about Russell Wilson not turning the ball over. RG3 has turned it over very little this year, too. They limit him to about
and that's over the year.
20 throws a game. They have as good a running game as there is in the league right now with Alfred Morris, who sounds like the most humble guy on the planet. Because one of his teammates was calling him a star. I think it was Cooley. And he goes, I'm not a star. I'm just Alfred. So when you go third person, but you're being humble about it.
That's true. And that negates a lot of those speed ends of Seattle. You're right.
I don't know how you can take Seattle at home in this game. I'm taking, in the pool, I'm going Washington both ways. I'm not doing no P-split on this one. I'm going Washington both ways.
Okay.
So, all right. So now for our bets. Do we want to do Cincinnati money line?
Let's throw it at the money line and just have some fun. It's a good price. Those good price money lines have been our best bets lately.
And if Chad Millman's right from ESPN that all the sharp money's coming in on Cincinnati, I like it. And that's probably on the number, though, 4.5.
Yeah, but let's throw it at the money line.
Yeah, $10 pays us $27.50.
All right.
So now, do we want to go $10 on Green Bay, 7.5?
Absolutely. I think we want to have some kind of action on every game going.
Yeah, and then we'll tease the last two.
Yeah.
So we have Green Bay minus 7.5 hosting Minnesota. $10 bet pays $19.09. And just while we're talking here, I want to remind people that we went on a hell of a run last year in the playoffs. So you might want to think of backing us this year. Saying.
Yes, indeed we did.
Okay, so we're going Baltimore minus 7. And we're going Washington plus 3.
No, Baltimore minus 1. Okay.
There. So we're going to tease those down by 6 points. This doesn't even seem worth it. Payout's $18.33.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, if we hit all three, we do okay. So we have Indianapolis at Baltimore. We've teased Baltimore down 6 from minus 7 to minus 1. We're taking Washington at home against Seattle. They were plus 3. We've teased that 6 points in our favor to plus 9. Our $10 bet pays $18.33, and that is booked. So those are our playoff bets. I don't know who we need to ride this year for the Super Bowl. You have any thoughts right now on who?
I'm not against Denver, to be honest.
Well, it's looking like a Denver-Indy AFC championship.
Though I think we might be able to make some money off Green Bay the way they came in late with no bye week.
But who are they going to get? Or they're the number 3 seed, right? Yeah.
Green Bay can beat Atlanta.
Yeah, they're the 3 seed.
Green Bay is a hell of a matchup with San Francisco. That was a great game early.
San Francisco's going to kill Green Bay.
I don't know. They didn't win by much.
But that defense of Green Bay, Frank Gore will have 130 yards and Kaepernick will have 70 or 80.
I'm not sold on this Kaepernick experiment, to be honest.
Green Bay's defense.
I would love San Francisco a lot more with Alex Smith right now. Maybe Kaepernick is the guy of the future, but I would prefer a guy that you could count on to do what he was told to do.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a team that I like I did the Giants last year. The way the matchups worked out for them, but we'll have to wait and see how the matchups work out now. Because you could be right. It could be Green Bay. It could be San Francisco. What if Green Bay loses?
I don't foresee that right now, but I thought New Orleans would beat Seattle a few years back. So,
yeah, we all did.
Okay.
So, if you want to check us out, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes. Just search Offensive Lines. You can listen to it on our website, offensivelines.ca. You can follow us on Twitter at Offensive Lines. You get updates to our podcast, go up, our daily web postings. You can follow us on Facebook.com/Offensive Lines. And if you want to email the show, it's offensivelines@shaw.ca. I'm Boyd.
I'm Marlon. Enjoy the Wildcard weekend.